Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Redmen TV and your latest episode of Transfer Insight. My name is Dan Club. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Tom English, the chief sports writer and broadcaster for BBC Scotland. Tom, my friend, how are you? Okay.
I'm very well, Dan. Yourself?
Yeah, can't complain. Basking
Good.
in the sun down here. It's
It's beautiful.
glorious.
It's beautiful up here in Scotland as well. Unusual, but very welcome.
I'm glad you said it, not me. No, I'm glad to hear it's sunny as well. Absolutely, yeah. And obviously, as mentioned a couple of times now, Scotland's Liverpool heavy link to Jeremie Frimpong. We're clearly here to talk about Jeremie Frimpong and his time in Scotland at Celtic, of course. Tom, if you can, take us back September 2019. He signs. What was the hype? What was the feeling? Was there excitement? What were your early impressions of him? Clearly, just a still wet behind the ears 18-year-old from Man City's academy. Yeah, remind us, tell us what that felt like.
Well, it kind of came in under the radar. I mean, came in from Man City. Celtic had connections with Man City. Peter Lawwell and Mark Lawwell, chief executive at the time, and his son was a scout. So there was clear connections between Liverpool, with Celtic and Man City. 350 grand signing, rising to 1 million with add-ons. Like, there wasn't much buzz. Mikael Lustig had just retired that summer, and he was iconic right back for Celtic. So big boots to fill. I think there were other right backs signed: Moritz Bauer, Hatim El Hamed, desperately searching around, looking for someone who could fill the giant boots of Lustig. And Frimpong came in, as you say, 18. Played, that first season, played 21 games, scored a couple of goals, 3 assists, 18 starts, which was kind of surprising for a kid. Had great energy, kind of really engaging personality, very, very attacking. One setting, and that was forward. Massive energy and a fan favourite until it came to defending. He was a very, very poor defender, ill-disciplined. Now, this is the boy who's just learning his trade, right? He doesn't know up from down. But I think he was so kind of infectious in his personality and his desire that Celtic fans really liked him. He was up and down, incredible pace, really, really exciting. Finished the season, Celtic won a treble. He played in a League Cup final, got sent off and gave away a penalty against Rangers. Not really the team you want to give away a penalty and get sent off against. The Rangers then missed the penalty, and Celtic won 1-0. Now, he gave an interview in the wake of that after he got sent off in that cup final, which was really, really engaging, because what you saw then was this boyish enthusiasm, and he was very expressive and giddy, and it was lovely. It was really lovely, and he looked about 12 when he was doing the interview, so he was talking about how he felt when he got sent off, and oh my God, he thought he was going to destroy the day for Celtic. His relief, it was lovely. So that was all great. That was a really solid start. 3 trophies, treble, not a bad beginning. It kind of went pear-shaped from there.
Okay, interesting. I wanted to ask you really, because obviously you mentioned that the boots he had to step into in terms of the like-for-like right-back replacement he was sort of tasked with, if you like. But in terms of arriving at a football club, and now listen, he's clearly a massive football club in Manchester City, certainly in modern terms, but he was in the academy. He never really got to see the bright light of what that looked like. But in terms of stepping into a football club the size of Celtic, with all the pressure, with all the expectation, at 18, like for you, he is that infectious personality. You mentioned the fan favourite there a moment ago. Did he take to that well? Could you see from the early signs that were there that, okay, this is a lad who doesn't really feel that sort of pressure?
Yeah, definitely. That first season, 2019-20, definitely. There's always pressure with Celtic. There's always pressure to win. A draw is a disaster for Celtic. But they were so far ahead, that was their 9th league title in a row. And everyone assumed it was going to be 10 in a row. This iconic, this holy grail of 10, right? Celtic have done it, Rangers have done it. No, sorry, done 9. Nobody's done 10. And I think emotionally, everybody at Celtic had already got to 10. In their own heads, they were already there. So the first season for him was pretty easy. He was Celtic's Young Player of the Season. Neil Lennon loved him. Neil Lennon improved him, invested a lot of time and belief in him. So going into the following season, all looked rosy. You had this exciting but raw right back, not right wing back, but kind of right back. And Celtic were feeling very, very good about themselves. And I think what happened after that, character building, for sure. Like if you talk, I mean, he was still a teenager, going into 20, and he had this for that first half of the season, that 10 in a row season in inverted commas. That must have been brutal for him. Absolutely brutal. In terms of growing up as a footballer, I suspect he did a lot of growing up that because Celtic was a bad place to be around for the entire season. Now, he got half of it, but he got enough of it. And it wasn't pleasant.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, tell us a bit more about that. But also, you mentioned the position that you played there, and I think that's a real fascinating element of this whole Jeremie Frimpong interest, if you like, in the speculation. Because clearly, as you said there, a right back under Neil Lennon, converted somewhat to a right wing back under Xabi Alonso by Leverkusen latterly, and a lot of people even now, I think he's been used more in the Dutch national team as even further advanced than that as a right winger. So from your perspective, you touched on a moment ago about some of his defensive deficiencies. Do you think he was just a reluctant defender, or do you think there's something sort of deep down rooted within his game that he can't be an out and out right back?
Like it's very hard to judge him on that because he was so young, and I said, he's just started to play senior football, so he was so raw. Certainly he's setting, and I think judging by the fact now he's playing right wing back, and he's, as you say, for the Netherlands, he's playing further forward again. He's an attacking player. He's not a defensive player. His first setting is attack, and he's very good at it. That's his natural. I think it's his natural mindset. He was in that second season, 2020-21 at Celtic. He was playing in a back four that was a shambles. Now, he was right back. The centre backs were Shane Duffy, who was on loan, was a good solid pro Shane Duffy until he got to Celtic, and it was a disaster. I mean, he was a target for the fans. Beside him was Christopher Ayer, who was very good, went on to Brentford. And left back was Diego Laxalt, Uruguayan World Cup player. Celtic thought they'd want to watch and getting him. He was a disaster. So you're talking your left back and one of your centre backs are having a crisis. And then you've got poor Frimpong on the right side, who's just learning. Above them, the midfield was deficient. Above them, again, Celtic had made some terrible signings. A couple of forwards, Ayeti and Klimala, not doing it. And they started to lose a few games, draw a few games, and the wall started to close in. The Rangers were good, very good actually that season. Didn't lose a game in the league. So they got off to a great start. Celtic got off to a faltering start. And it started to unravel from there. And when it unraveled, my God, did it unravel. And everybody got it in the neck. And his defending was naive. He was overcommitting in attack. Now, even though he's a speedster, my abiding memory of Frimpong is him scampering back at 1,000,000 miles an hour to try and get back into position and failing to get there. Just about, but just failing, There was no leadership in that defence. They were all having their own personal issues. So it was everybody from themselves. What Frimpong needed there was what Celtic have now, a solid, gnarled defence. Carter Vickers, very, very good for them to kind of just guide him through games. But he had nobody. He had nobody to do that. And it was a disaster. That 10 in a row season was a total disaster. It started well. first game he scored against Hamilton. They won 5-1. But after that, they drew at Kilmarnock, they lost to Rangers, they drew at Aberdeen, they lost 4-1 to Sparta Prague in Europe, they drew at Hibs, drew at St Johnstone, lost again to Rangers, drew at Hibs again, drew twice with Livingston. He started all these games. Mm. And by that stage, we're going into the turn of the year. They were miles off it. Celtic Park was just a bad place to be. Then they went in the January break. There was the January break. They went to Dubai. Now this is in COVID times, right? Do you remember that? They went to Dubai, yeah. And it was a horror show because one of their defenders got COVID. They came back. They had a game against Livingston, a midweek game. 15 players had to self-isolate because they were close contacts of Christopher Julian, the centre half. Neil Lennon had to as well, and all his coaches had to. So I think that was pretty much the end for Frimpong.